If you've ever felt like your partner shuts down when you ask how you're feeling, or if you find yourself saying, I don't know what I'm feeling, I just feel off, you might be dealing with something deeper than emotional avoidance. You might be dealing with something called alexithymia. And no, it's not a disease, nobody's broken, but it's real and it affects your relationships, your mental health, and your ability to connect with yourself. Because if you don't know how to identify or express your emotions, it's going to be really hard to have the connections and relationships you want. So today you'll learn exactly what alexithymia is, the science behind it, and my 6-step plan to build the skill of knowing what you're feeling so you can create more connection, ease, and joy. So stay tuned. Well, we're back at the podcast with a good one today, aren't we? Feelings, identifying feelings, knowing what you're feeling. It's a toughie, isn't it? And I think it's something that's getting tougher and tougher as people have less and less connection, less and less ways that they pick up on social cues in person, have that with so much online and so much communication happening not in person. So because feeling feelings is a skill. Understanding your feelings is a skill, and I'm going to get real deep on it today. And again, as always, I'm going to tell you if you have trouble with this, how you can get out of it. Now, the title of today's podcast also says maybe you have a partner or a mom or someone else who has trouble identifying and expressing their feelings. This is going to be about you today, but you'll be able to see how, all of these could be skills that other people could use too. I wouldn't go around diagnosing people or anything like that, but it is good to share the podcast with others, or if you're watching me on YouTube, you could share a video, or there's always a corresponding blog post on my website for if somebody wants to read instead of going, listening to a podcast or watching. So share as you need to. So let's talk about it. What is alexithymia? You might have never heard that word before. And it literally means no words for emotions. So it couldn't be more descriptive. And I want to be very clear. It is not a mental illness. This is not a mental illness, but it's more of maybe a personality trait, something that, part of someone's character development. And it's marked by a difficulty identifying, understanding, and expressing emotions, especially your own. Okay, but even noticing them in other people, being able to pick on those cues. So people with alexithymia often focus more on external events than internal experiences. We would call that an external locus of control as opposed to an internal one. They tend to prefer logic over feelings. And I keep saying it might be you. It's estimated that it's really about, I shouldn't say only, that about 10% of the general population has moderate to severe alexithymia. And we know though that there are higher rates in people who have depression, trauma histories, autism spectrum disorders. That should seem obvious, right? Substance use disorders. So while alexithymia it's not a formal mental health diagnosis. What I mean by that, it's not in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which we psychologists, healthcare professionals, psychiatrists, therapists, everybody use to diagnose people. So it's not in there. I just want to be really clear. But it's definitely, there's a lot of research on it, and it is frequently linked to mental health challenges and to developmental conditions. Okay. So, and again, many of you know my stepson is severely autistic, and, so obviously someone with autism and anywhere on the spectrum of autism isn't necessarily going to understand their own emotions or be good at understanding other people's emotions and picking up on those cues. I think we think of that pretty commonly as sort of a known thing, but I think people miss that lots of other people have this problem. And it's more than just, they won't do the work. Sometimes it's literally how the brain is developed. So I'm going to go deep today. I'm going to give you all of it today. And again, and as I always do, the way out. Okay. So let's talk about the signs that you might have alexithymia or be in a relationship with someone who does. Again, we don't like to diagnose people from afar. And again, this isn't really a diagnosis anyway, but it's really good to be informed. Okay. And I do want to say, alexithymia is not always really obvious at first. So you might not check every box, but here are the most common signs that I see, that I've seen for the last 40 years in my practice and with the people I work with, and definitely from the research. So the easy one is someone who struggles to describe feelings beyond basic words like good, bad, fine, shoulder shrug, I don't know, it's okay. If you have any difficulty past that, I mean, real difficulty, that's a problem. There's hundreds. And actually, so the free download today is going to be a list of feelings. I have one, that I've created over the years that's got like every feeling you can imagine. There's probably 100 on there. So if you can only think of 3 or 4 at a time, mad, sad, glad, if that's all you can come up with past good, bad, or fine, I'll tell you, you got to get better at it. Okay. So when you see all the ways, I'm content, I'm satisfied. Oh, I'm feeling a little shy, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. I'm feeling, oh God, there's a low anxiety hum. There's a little tiny bit of worry. There's a little, whatever. There's so many. I'm feeling joyous. I am feeling serene. I am feeling calm. I could go on. And I definitely, you know me, I'm always outing myself. This was my worst thing for many years. And I think for a lot of people with drug addictions, it is. We've often said that I started doing drugs very young. And that we say that people often with a drug or alcohol problem, the age you started abusing is sort of the emotional age you stop growing. And I think that was very true for me. And I started stealing drugs at age 9, so from my brothers. So you can imagine. I know we had Yellow Jackets back then, and Bennies, all kinds of good stuff. Quaaludes. Those were the good old days, or not so good old days. But and I was historically bad at naming a feeling, and had a really hard time because every rehab I was ever in, I've shared this before, they always make you go around in a circle and say how you're feeling, name 2 feelings. And I would always wait and copy what other people said because I had no clue, I have to tell you. And it is a skill. So I will tell you, I'm pretty good at it now, lots of years of practice. And I would say that every therapist you meet was probably like me and someone who had some struggles. So we become therapists or psychologists or whatever as our own means of, physician heal thyself kind of thing. We're not physicians, but you get the idea. So if you have trouble identifying anything beyond good or bad or fine, another symptom I see a lot is often feeling disconnected from your emotions or experiencing them as physical symptoms. So a lot of times people don't realize they're having an emotion, but their chest is tight, their tummy's upset, their throat closes, things like that. They get a headache. You feel your shoulders tighten, you have back pain. When you get a lot of physical symptoms instead of being able to identify a feeling, that's another big one. Avoiding emotional conversations or feeling overwhelmed by them in some way. Again, that really speaks a lot to not being practiced at them. And I promise you, if you're someone who cries very easily now or gets angry very easily now because you haven't practiced these skills, you will get better over time. Anytime I used to be upset before, I used to cry right away. If I was angry, I would cry. We call this emotional flooding. It's a way that because we're not good at this, we sort of overdo, for lack of a better term. And I promise that if this is you, it does get better over time as you get better at this. It really does. People who tend to intellectualize everything, another one of my personal favorites. I feel like am I having a therapy session with myself today? Okay. When you tend to intellectualize everything, that's someone often who has difficulty with their emotions. And it's kind of related to the first thing I said, but having a very limited emotional vocabulary. So always, again, defaulting to words like I'm fine, or I'm just stressed out, or I'm just tired, that kind of stuff over and over and over. Again, this kind of difficulty expressing emotions verbally or avoiding emotional conversations altogether. I think I just said that, didn't I? Okay. Seeming emotionally flat, or we call this like a flat affect sometimes, or robotic. Other people might have said that you seem detached or robotic, and again, it doesn't mean you don't care deeply. It just means that's kind of how it comes across, like a little bit cold, maybe. If that's the kind of feedback you get, or if it's how you feel, if that is the thing you notice or feel, then guess what? Low empathy is also something I see. And again, difficulty picking up on other people's emotional cues, not, kind of just not having a lot of empathy for what other people are going through. Sort of I was working with a client the other day and I was asking her to have some empathy for her partner. And she said, well, she's a grown woman, the lesbian couple, obviously. She said, she's a grown woman. Like, I shouldn't have to take care of her like that. And I thought, and I wasn't asking her to be codependent. I was asking her to be empathetic. And, it was hard. And so it's this, if these are the kinds of things you're thinking or feeling a lot, well, they should be able to take care of themselves. They're grown-ups. What's going on? Then you probably have difficulty here. And obviously, so avoiding those the emotional intimacy. Remember, it's not about sex. It's about emotional closeness, keeping conversations kind of surface level, more, I don't want to say shallow, but more surface level. Again, it doesn't mean you are cold or uncaring. People who have alexithymia can obviously deeply, deeply love other people. It's just that it's like they just don't have the language or the tools to express it in a way that people, connect to. So where does it come from? This is where it gets really important, okay? Because I'm coming at you with all of it so you can really understand yourself here. So there's two broad types of alexithymia, all right? One, there's primary or trait and secondary or state. And the way I want you to remember these is when you think of a trait, what do I always say to you? Motivation is a state, not a trait, right? Motivation is a state. It's a state of being. It comes and goes. It's not a trait. A trait is something that is more permanent. It is something that's more hardwired. So my height is a trait, right? How tall I am is a trait. My natural hair color. This is my natural hair color if you're watching me on YouTube, but it gets some help to be natural these days if you're picking up what I'm laying down. Do you know what I mean though? My eye color, trait. These are traits. These are things that are you're hardwired this way. There's some DNA involved or there's some wiring involved. Okay. So that's how I want you to remember it. So that's the primary kind of alexithymia, we call it. And that's trait alexithymia. That means that you have had this problem since early life, and it's because of neurobiological differences. So, again, hardwiring. So brain imaging shows people with trait alexithymia, they have reduced activity in areas of the brain that process emotions, that process internal sensations. So we can see it on a functional MRI kind of thing or a PET scan. They can tell that you have this kind of wiring. And about 10% of the general population is estimated to have this form of alexithymia. Okay. Now, state or secondary alexithymia, it develops later, and that's usually in response to some kind of trauma, chronic stress, neglect. We see it a lot, again, in high stress groups. If you have PTSD, you likely have this. And in these groups, rates of alexithymia climb up to 40 to 60%. So if you, for example, had a lot of emotional neglect as a kid, you are, probably in the 50 to 60% likely category to have this alexithymia. Do you get where I'm going here? Again, not something that you were necessarily born with, although it can be hard to tell because think about it. If you grew up in a really neglectful household, or maybe both your parents were drug addicts or something, or maybe you didn't have parents at home, who knows? You're so young, it's hard to tell, right? What would have happened for you if you had grown up in a different kind of home? So and it does get hardwired in its own way, but it's due to environment, not due to initially to biology. So if you grew up in an environment where, emotions weren't modeled, they weren't validated, if you experienced, again, some kind of overwhelming trauma or neglect, it makes perfect sense that you would disconnect from your feelings to survive, right? Feelings are painful. Why would I be near those things? So hopefully this really makes sense. And a lot of what I'm explaining today is so that you can stop thinking of yourself as broken or wrong or stupid or dumb or what's wrong with me or why can't I get this, and really understand that there's some wiring that's gone on, that there's some real reasons. It doesn't mean you don't have responsibility in your life today. It doesn't mean we are not looking to change these things and that you should change these things. But I would like you to at least realize that there are reasons for these things, right? Okay. So the good news is that, so state alexithymia, that kind of secondary one I just said, it tends to respond really well to therapy and other interventions, right? So, and that's not to say that if you were like born with alexithymia, you can change too. It just often requires kind of a longer term skills training, let's say it that way, okay? But still you will benefit because the brain is neuroplastic, meaning it changes and grows depending on experience and what happens. We say what fires together wires together. So as you are firing things or you are doing those things, you are changing your brain's real estate. You are literally changing how big and small structures are in your brain by what you're focusing on. I know. Crazy, right? I'm sure I've shared before, like, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has taken people from these monks who've been on mountains for years, meditating on compassion, and had their brains scanned. Can you imagine? It's so great. Anyway, because he's like a science nerd, or he was for many years, really into science. And what they found that these monks who've been meditating on compassion for years, the part of the brain that we think is involved in compassion is about 3 times the size of a quote unquote normal person's neocortex, part of that brain where we think compassion lives. They've very famously done all these studies with black cab drivers in London. I'm not talking about ethnicity or race here. I'm talking about black cabs, not the drivers could be any color. Black cabs in London, famously very, very difficult to pass this test to be a black cab driver in London. The streets are incredibly confusing. Anytime I've been there, I have not. Oh my gosh, crazy. And they've tested their brains, and the part of the brain where you would hold a map in your brain, where spatial kind of geometry lives, again, much more enlarged than in people who don't drive black cabs and who haven't been driving black cabs as long as these drivers. So again, we change the real estate in your brain is not fixed. It changes. It's neuroplastic. It can change depending on what you focus on, which is why you can change your brain, which is why I teach what I teach, because even if you've been this way your whole life, you can absolutely learn the skills to rewire your brain. And that's what we're working on. Okay. Now, obviously, from wherever you start with your brain, it could be harder, right? And easier for others. So let's not get into comparisons or anything, but you can always make some changes. All right. So I got to talk about what's happening in the brain, because when I give you these steps, I want you to follow them. And if you're listening, you're a smarty pants, because I don't dumb it down for you. I tell you what's going on. I want you to understand context so you do what I say. So you get that these tips I'm giving you make sense when it's related to what is actually happening in your brain. They're not just out of nowhere. So whether alexithymia is lifelong or developed later or whatever it is, obviously your brain plays a major role, right? So people with alexithymia experience, again, structural and functional differences in brain regions that are responsible for processing emotions. So I'm just going to go through a few of them, okay? Just a few, because I want you to understand. And this will all be part of the blog on the website if you want to go back later and look at all the research. I have a ton of research associated with this episode because you know me, I went down the rabbit hole for you, or for myself. I love doing this stuff. So your insular cortex, where interoception lives, and I'm going to explain that. The insula, it helps you sense your internal states, okay? Your hunger, heartbeat, when you get like butterflies in your stomach, right? Those emotional butterflies. When you have alexithymia, that area of the brain shows reduced activity. So this means you might feel something in your body, but not be able to translate it into an emotion. How's that for crazy? Okay. Then your ACC is also involved, your anterior cingulate cortex. And the ACC helps with emotional awareness. It helps you with empathy. And people with alexithymia show lower activation and reduced Gray matter volume. Okay, you need the volume in your gray matter in these areas. That's kind of that's the key. People with alexithymia show lower activation and reduced gray matter volume in the ACC. So it makes it harder. What does that mean? Why do we care? It makes it harder to process and reflect on emotional experiences, which is why I was talking about the neuroplasticity. If we don't change the actual what's happening in the brain, I don't care how much you think about it, you won't be able to change it. If you're diabetic, I don't care how much you, practice eating well. If you're a type 1 diabetic, if you have juvenile diabetes or type 1 diabetes, you're not going to heal, how you process insulin. Right? You can't change it, but because it's hard, this is hardwired. But if you have type 2 diabetes, and if later on, usually what we call adult onset diabetes or something later, and you change your food and you change your things, you can change right? You can change that process in your body. And this is the same here, in your brain, but it's even better because you can literally change what's happening in your brain, like how your brain looks, this ACC, you could literally change what's happening with it. I know. Amazing. I'm not going to talk about the brain without talking about your amygdala, right? And we call, that's the fear part of your brain. And your amygdala, it does a lot, but it flags your emotional experiences as important, okay? It tells the brain what to react to and what not to react to. And when it's underactive, emotional events might not feel significant, right? So you get kind of a flat or a numb reaction. So something that's even wonderful and fabulous and great and loving and great, you're not having the same reaction as other people do. And you're left feeling a little flat about it. I know. And you're probably faking it real well, but yeah, I see you. I know. That sucks. So I want to say, so alexithymia isn't just about kind of your individual brain regions also. Okay. Because I was going to go into more brain, but I'm not. Okay. It's about how they communicate to each other. And so, I'll link to the research, but I looked at a lot of studies that showed these weakened connections between the amygdala, the insula, the prefrontal cortex. When you have weakened connections there, the ACC, it makes it harder to interpret your emotions, to regulate your emotions, to express your emotions, right? That's why this is hard. So when you understand that this is about brain function, not a weakness of character, I'm hoping it reduces your shame and increases your hope. I'm hoping it increases your sense of self-efficacy that I can change this, I can do something about it. So we know, right? Mindfulness practice, when I say we know, I mean from the research. Practices like mindfulness, somatic tracking, therapy can all rewire your brain through that neuroplasticity I was talking about. So you're not going to be stuck this way forever. Okay? So with state alexithymia, these patterns often reverse with targeted therapy. Okay? Again, with mindfulness, nervous system regulation work, all of which you can get for free here on the podcast. Yes. I'll link to, previous episodes I've done. Brain scans of people who've gone through trauma therapy often show a reactivation of these emotional circuits I was just talking about. How do you like that? So, you could do EMDR, which literally rewires your brain. I've talked about EMDR in previous episodes. I'm a huge fan. Biofeedback, neurofeedback. I mean, there's so many good things. And then even cognitive behavioral therapy and other things. But mindfulness. Have you downloaded the free mindfulness starter kit yet? Have you done it? It's here. It's free. Friggin' download that thing already. Oh my gosh, you're killing me. Below the video, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe if you are, please. It really helps people. Leave a comment. Love to hear it. You know me, over on the website, wherever you find this podcast, this particular episode, you can always download. And it's on the shop page of the website too, even though it's free. Okay. So let's talk about how alexithymia impacts your relationships. And this is where I come in, I'm going to be my Jewish bossy mother energy right now, because this is the stuff that slowly kills connection. When you can't recognize or talk about your emotional experience, miscommunication becomes the norm. I'm not even going to spend a ton of time here right now, just because I'm hoping you already know how important this is. I hope you already can see all the problems you get into because you're not identifying what you really feel, maybe sometimes even till way after the fact or never. And that's getting in the way of your relationships. Maybe you're not having that true joy that you deserve, and maybe you are dismissing other people's feelings and your own and not finding the emotional intimacy you want. Partners, friends, family, maybe they've told you they felt neglected or dismissed or emotionally abandoned, even when you love them and feel like you're doing all the right things, okay? And I see patterns. I see it all the time. I'll see one person constantly pulling for emotional connection while the other person withdraws. I see that conflict escalates because feelings aren't named or they're not processed. They're not resolved ever. You have the same fight over and over. Physical intimacy is going to suffer because emotional intimacy is missing. There's that feeling of everyone feeling alone together. And that sucks. Okay? So, can you fix it? Can you fix alexithymia? Now, you can't cure alexithymia. I'm not even going to use that word, but you can absolutely work with it. And to me, it's like learning a new language. You know, it's a little tough in the beginning, but boy, once you sort of get going, it really becomes much more natural. And so think of it like that. It's emotional awareness. It's a skill. It takes time and practice. It's a new language you're learning. I know you think you should already know it or whatever. Other people have some kind of magic that they do. I get it. Stop. Cut that crap out. It's not helpful. If it was helpful, I'd tell you to do it. It's not helpful. So, and thanks to your brains, again, neuroplasticity, real change is absolutely possible. So like I said earlier, I'm going to do this briefly and then get into my 6 steps. Research-backed therapies that help, okay, include EMDR, which I already mentioned. Emotion-focused therapy, or EFT. It helps people. EFT is great because it helps you really learn to identify, tolerate, and express emotions. DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, which I've also talked on here before, is really great. Mindfulness-based interventions really improve that interoception and emotional labeling skills because you're in your moment, you're noticing what you're feeling, and you're able to attach to something. Mindfulness is the best for all this, I got to tell you. And any of the therapies I just mentioned are going to include mindfulness. So you might as well get started. Why do you think I beat the drum on mindfulness so much? My Lord, my Lord. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, especially CBT with a focus on emotional regulation, has definitely been shown from the research to be helpful. Believe it or not, expressive writing or journaling, the research has shown, can build emotional vocabulary and awareness over time. And if you're part of my the One Love Collective, my online, right now we're on Patreon group, I have journaling prompts as part of what you get for free, as part of being in Patreon. Well, for free, because you pay to be in Patreon, but you know what I mean. As part of being in Patreon. I have journaling prompts because I usually have journal prompts with every episode. If you want to be part of the One Love Collective, there's a link. You can find Patreon on my website or anywhere you're downloading this. We'll have a link to that. But if you don't want to be, if you're like, I don't want to make a monthly commitment, Abby, to pay you money, forget it. But if you want, I have a ton of different homework to help you get good at naming your emotions, feeling your emotions, dealing with your emotions, that my One Love Collective is getting. As with the other episodes, I am offering that for $8 as a bundle. If you want to listen till the end, I'll list everything that people are getting in that bundle so you can make an informed choice whether that sounds like something you want to get or not. Okay. I really strongly encourage you. We just had a live Q&A yesterday, which is part of the One Love Collective. I love the live Q&A. I just get on there and answer your questions, like with my audience. It's so much fun. We have a great community online. People are supporting each other. It's really not even just about me. And so far, people are saying that's the best part, is the support they get from each other, because that's what I'm building there, because that's what's important to me at this stage of my life, is to have community. So I feel like a member of that community more than like the leader, of it. Obviously, I'm guiding it, but I don't think of myself as the hub. I think of us all as the hub. But anyway, so therapy is powerful, and there are plenty of things you can do on your own. And that's great. There are plenty of things you can do on your own. Sorry, I was putting 2 sentences together in my head. So let's get into it. What can you do? What are these action steps to start dealing with your alexithymia? And I have 6 steps. Okay. Step 1, I already said it. Mindfulness. You can't change something you're not aware of. That's why mindfulness is the foundation for every one of these steps. And again, what is mindfulness? It's not meditation, really clearly. I do have a meditation starter kit, which is also free. If you're interested in learning to meditate, go check it out. Again, you can download it on the shop page of my website. I know it's under shop, but it's free. You don't have to put in a credit card. I do nothing sleazy. We all know that by now. But if you want to download that, go ahead also. But mindfulness is different. It simply means noticing you're being present, fully present, non-judgmentally in your inner and outer experiences. So, and for folks who have alexithymia, that noticing themselves and what's happening can feel really foreign or uncomfortable at first. Of course it's going to. So you've got to get better. So before you try any of the strategies, you would start with, again, some of this mindfulness. So maybe you'd be in a conversation with someone and you'd say, wow, what am I sensing in my body right now? What thoughts are present? You can do it right now. You don't have to be in a conversation with anybody. Think right now. Stop yourself. Abby's chatting at you. What am I feeling right now? Was I just daydreaming about something else? Am I feeling hungry? Am I already thinking about lunch instead of listening? Or maybe I'm trying to listen with one ear, but also daydreaming about something else. Am I worried about work right now? Am I worried about when my kids are coming home? Am I feeling something in my son? Oh, I'm a little anxious. My mother is coming into town tomorrow and I have a lot of things to do and I'm starting to feel a little impatient. I'm starting to feel a little rushed, and this is what thoughts are present about that. Can I be curious instead of critical? And, without that awareness, you'll either overthink it or you'll shut it down. And neither's going to help you build emotional, fluency, emotional skills. So you got to get the mindfulness. Okay. Step 2, this is really important. Start labeling your physical sensations. Most people with alexithymia notice something is off physically before they can name an emotion. So when you tune into the physical sensations, you're building the bridge between your body and the feeling. So, and here's, me, I'm always nitty gritty. I'm your girl. I'm going to be nitty gritty. Here's how I want you to do it. Set a timer for 2 to 3 times a day. Okay. And when it goes off, pause and scan your body. Just pause. Like when it goes off, pause. Is my jaw clenched? Relax your jaw. Where are my shoulders? Are they tight? Are they up near my ears? Are they relaxed? Is my stomach fluttery? Do my legs feel heavy? Write it down or name it aloud. I know, even if it sounds silly, I don't really care, but do that. So it might be like at work before a meeting, notice if your throat feels tight or your chest feels heavy. That could be performance anxiety, by the way, not just like annoyance or boredom. If you're at home, if you feel restless in the evening, check your legs. Is tension from the day or maybe there's unprocessed frustration you haven't talked about. Maybe there's anxiety about tomorrow. If you're with friends, if you feel like off after a group, hangout or, hanging out with your friends, check your body. That pit in your stomach might be social comparison. It might be emotional fatigue. It might be compassion fatigue. Check in. So, because again, if you have alexithymia or if you've had any history of having difficulty with your emotions, you probably notice things in your body first. So start there. Step 3 is now we want to expand your feeling vocabulary, right? You can't express what you don't have words for. And most people the research shows that most people rely on about 5 to 6 basic emotions, right? Happy, sad, angry, anxious, stressed, tired, right? But there are dozens and dozens more, and that can really help you pinpoint what's actually going on. So what I would do for this is I would print out the free feelings list download that I have, or you can use an app. I think one of my clients uses a mood meter or something like that. No, I don't get money right now if you go download that. But you can come and download the free feelings list for me. You can go download your own, whatever you want to do, but get something that has a lot of feelings on it. Not the one with like the 10 faces, I mean like 50 to 100 feelings. Okay, I mean feelings. And at the end of the day, choose 3 words that might describe your day. So and don't try to get it right. You know what I mean? Don't get too, but just practice guessing and try to use different words. Okay. Try to use different words. So, at work, instead of saying like, I'm stressed, you always say I'm stressed. Maybe you were overstimulated. Maybe you were pressured. Maybe you didn't get enough sleep last night. Maybe, right? At home, instead of saying, how are you? I'm fine. Maybe you felt disappointed or lonely after dinner with your partner. Maybe you felt lonely. If you're with friends, instead of, I don't know, it was okay. Was it awkward? Maybe you were self-conscious or disconnected. Do you see where I'm going here? Yeah. All right. Step 4, use parts language. And this step is based on internal family systems. I should do a whole episode on IFS. It's not a specialty I have or anything, but I certainly have studied it quite a bit and been to many trainings. Internal family systems, IFS concepts. IFS is great. I think it's pretty great. So IFS is meant to offer like an emotionally safe way to engage, I'll use that word, with your inner experiences. When it's great because if direct identification is too hard or if it's really triggering, okay, IFS is great for this. And research has shown that this parts language, they talk a lot about these parts, and IFS, again, it's been researched a lot. It shows that that parts language reduces the overwhelm and helps people stop judging or suppressing their emotional reactions. And it's especially helpful for those with trauma, or if you have a super strong, mean inner critic, So for some people, saying something like, I feel sad can feel too exposed. And instead you would say, a part of me feels sad. And believe it or not, that creates a lot of psychological safety. And it lets you explore without feeling overwhelmed or judged. And it also opens up the fact that we have a lot of feelings at once often. A part of me feels sad and a part of me feels excited, or whatever that is. Believe it or not, just that small, try it. I'm telling you, it's incredibly effective. So how would you do it? So, you would ask yourself, what's happening right now that feels difficult? Right? So think, whatever this thing is that's feeling difficult. And then say, what were the different parts of me saying? Well, part of me is saying that let's say there's something happened at work and you got given a new project and you're freaking out about it. Part of you is saying, I'm really excited that they think so much of me, that they gave me this opportunity. They obviously think I'm doing a great job and think I can do it. Another part of me is scared, what-less. I feel like I'm getting set up to fail. Another part of me is worried that everyone's going to judge me. Another part of me is worried I'm going to get fired if I don't get this. Another part of me is really excited because I could get a huge promotion if I get this, and it's all true. And it's a wonderful way to really explore. A part of me feels, a part of me wants to, a part of me is scared that, and really think about like, what do these parts need from me right now? And maybe, I just did this with a client the other day and she was saying, a part of me feels angry and another part of me feels guilty that I feel angry. She was angry at her kids and then she felt guilty about it. So use this, when journaling. You can use it in therapy during self-reflection. It's incredibly great. Again, at work, a part of me is panicking about this presentation, but another part feels excited. At home, a part of me is hurt that my partner didn't ask how my day was. Another part doesn't want to seem needy. There you go. Maybe you're supposed to go out with your friends tonight. A part of me wants to cancel plans. Another part is afraid of seeming flaky. Do you see how this goes? Okay. Step 5, journal using some emotional prompts. So again, writing helps bypass overthinking and gives your emotions space to breathe. And prompts really remove the pressure of knowing, what to say. So, I like sentence completions a lot. So whenever I do journaling prompts for my community or for my clients, I almost always have something that they have to complete. I'm worried I'll never understand my feelings because, if I never understand my feelings, then, kind of like that. I feel disconnected when, if I said what I was feeling, it might sound like, like I just like to open that up, really let the brain go. So you might be writing and be like, oh, at work, I freeze up in meetings because I'm afraid of being judged. You might write about that. I avoid speaking up because I get irritable at night when I get home because I'm feeling, I say I'm tired a lot. I just had this with a client the other day I was noticing with him. I said, you say you're tired a lot. I'm too tired for this. I'm too tired. I told my wife I was too tired. I'm too tired to play with the boys. I said, you're tired a lot. What are you really feeling? So I'm just tired a lot, but what I might really be feeling is, and I actually sent him a bunch of journaling prompts around the tiredness to get at what was underneath. We had the best next session after that because, boy, there was a lot there, right? Tiredness is a great way to avoid emotional intimacy. It's a great way to avoid what you're really thinking about. So I'm not saying people aren't tired. He's got 3 little kids, but there's something else, right? And then step 6 is to focus on creating the emotional safety, right? Alexithymia often shows up because your emotions haven't felt safe. So before you try to feel, speak, or share, you got to make sure you're emotionally safe. And that might mean choosing who you share with or how you share. And I hope you are careful with your boundaries around this stuff, right? I talk about this in my Boundaries Made Easy book and in the workbook. If you haven't gotten them yet, they're behind me if you're watching on the video. I'm really proud of my Boundaries Made Easy book. The workbook, The Boundaries Made Easier, is out. If I highly recommend. I do have different chapters. A lot of the books are the same. I'm gonna be really clear. There's a lot more in the workbook. So if you like the book, you probably love the workbook. But in the book, I have a whole last section of the book about kind of building a better you. And that is not in the workbook. But in the workbook, I have different chapters on forgiveness and triggers and some other things that aren't in the original book. So I don't know. You might find one is better than the other, but your boundaries are so important about who you share what with, especially when emotions are so hard, especially when you're trying to do this work. Don't set yourself up to fail with people who, what I find is that people share too much and then don't know how to hold the boundary and get overwhelmed and then back up. And we don't want that. So, limit your emotional conversations with people who dismiss you or who invalidate you. I would say definitely let yourself process emotions in private before expressing them to others. That's often helpful, or with a therapist first, or you could try, people are doing it in the community in the One Love Collective, they're kind of expressing things in this safe space. And it's great, getting some good feedback. You can get kind of better at that. And then maybe you can take it out on the road, with people you love. You could also experiment with asking for what you need in kind of low stakes ways, So you might say to someone, listen, I'm trying to name how I feel. I don't need you to fix it. I'm looking for comfort, not solutions, is another great way to do that, right? When you're setting people up for success, to not kind of come in. I'm going to need, I'm not so good at processing my emotions yet. I'd really appreciate it if you didn't jump in, if you left some quiet space so I can just think and process and talk. Don't interrupt, please. I'll let you know when I'm kind of done, that kind of stuff. Even if you're at work, you can say things like, you know what, I need a minute to process before I respond to that. Give me a second. Let me think about that. You don't have to say it's because of your emotions. I don't want you oversharing at work either. That's not safe. But they don't have to know that. You can say, you know what, okay, let me just think about that for a minute. It makes you look wise. And they might even say, well, I'm just asking this question. I just need an answer. And again, don't let them trample your boundaries. Say, I heard you and I'll get back to you. Just give me a minute. Let me let that sit for a minute. That's it. And then walk away or go somewhere else or do whatever you got to do. If you're with your partner, I'm trying to be more aware of what I'm feeling. It might come out awkward at first. Please be patient and loving and kind. You might tell your friends, hey, I'm working on sharing more. I might stumble through it, but I want to try. So I'm going to need your support and love, right? Does that all make sense? So let me wrap it up. So if you're someone who says, I just don't do feelings, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's time to rethink it. Whether you think you have alexithymia or not, because relationships, especially the one with yourself, are built on emotional awareness. And this is something AI will never be able to take away. Alexithymia isn't your fault if you have it, but it's your responsibility to work with it if you want deeper connection, if you want more joy, if you want more ease in your life. And so, again, start small, start with the steps, start with being mindful. Consistency is the key. Keep coming back to it. Keep making it a priority. That's really what you want to do. And, now I'm here cheering you on because that's what I do. Make sure you come over and get the feelings list or find one somewhere else that works for you if you don't want to have mine. There's plenty of them. There's not one wrong or right feelings list, but happy to share the one I have if that's what you would like. And always in my transparency, I'm letting you know that anytime you download something, the Mindfulness Starter Kit or anything else, you will be put on my email list, which is nothing. I don't sell anything from the email list. All I do is you will get twice a month emails that are love letter. I call them love bites. Twice a month, you'll get a letter that's just meant to inspire you, to help you think differently. Again, I don't sell anything in those letters. I'm not giving you updates on, I don't know, like what I'm doing in my business. I give you nothing. It's just me. It's just me sharing the love. And if you love that, you can sign up to get it weekly, which is $1.99 a month. If you just want it twice a month, you can stay there. And if you don't want it all, you can unsubscribe. So it's all pretty easy on the other side. And if you want, stay, and I'll tell you everything that the One Love Collective is getting. If you want to maybe buy the bundle, if this episode really spoke to you, I would highly recommend maybe trying to figure out maybe getting the bundle or doing some other work or calling a therapist or whatever, but maybe start, it's $8. Hopefully that's affordable. I try to make this affordable for most people, to do some deeper work. All right. So, if that's it for today, unless you want to hear what is coming for the One Love Collective or that's in the bundle that you can buy today. Other than that, have a great week. All right, tier 1, which is the inner circle. You're getting journaling prompts, as I always promise. You're also getting a trait versus state alexithymia, like what's the difference handout, where I just put the two next to each other if you're not sure kind of where you land. And then I have like a little 14-day challenge I created. It's the emotion word of the day. It's a 14-day challenge just to get you good at naming these emotions and practicing emotions, right? Tier 2, the Love Accelerator, obviously gets everything in Tier 1. And you're getting an emotion, what did I call it? The Emotion Detective Worksheet, which is like connecting the dots between triggers, body, and feelings, So I have a worksheet to help you do that. I also have a feelings forecast daily planner. Again, it's all about practicing feelings. It's all about practicing feelings in different ways. And then if you're in Tier 3, of course, you get everything, which is the VIP Love Lab. You're getting everything in Tier 1 and 2, plus you're getting the emotion/need connection worksheet. It's kind of to help you connect your emotions and your needs. You're also getting an emotional awareness action plan for when you don't know what you're feeling. So that's kind of a little longer thing, which takes a lot of what all these other things are and puts them into one place. And then a list of weekly practice suggestions. So you're getting all that. So if you want to get the bundle, you would get everything in Tier 1, 2, and 3 for $8. And you need to join my Patreon for free, though. It's not, there's nothing there. You'll pay the $8. And then you can just stay a free member. You don't get anything and nothing happens to you. But that way in the future, if you want to buy a different bundle, you're already there and you can just buy them as you want. And I don't bug you. I don't try to get you to join. I'm not that gal. If you want to join, great. If you don't, it's fine with me. But there you go. And for anyone still listening, I started a Substack. I hope you'll come see me over there. I'm trying to weave my way out of regular social media. And as I'm an author, I'm a writer, and moving on to Substack. All right, that's it. Oh, I love you so much. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for writing in, and keep writing in. Keep asking me, Abby@abbymedcalf.com, or DM me on Instagram or somewhere else when you have suggestions for the podcast. All right. Mwah. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you real soon.